Before you even think about reaching for your phone to send that message, pause for a moment and ask yourself who is sending this text, not your name, not your job title, not your relationship status. I'm asking, what kind of man is behind the words? Because you have to understand something fundamental. Texting isn't about the words. It's about the vibration you carry when you send those words. It's about the consciousness behind the message. You cannot fake frequency. You can't disguise insecurity with emojis. You can't hide self-doubt behind punctuation. Every message you send broadcasts your self-image, whether you know it or not. You want her to feel drawn to you. You want her to smile when your name lights up her screen. Then stop trying to text right and start becoming right within yourself. Women are not attracted to text. They're attracted to energy, and energy always follows identity. So if your identity is built on needing her attention to feel worthy, your message will drip with desperation, no matter how smooth your words are. But if your identity is rooted in confidence, purpose, and vision, then even a simple "what's up" will land differently. Why? Because she doesn't feel the text, she feels you. Let's go deeper. Most men are chasing a reaction. They want a response, a reply, a laugh, a green light. They think if they say the right thing, she'll be impressed. But that's a poor man's game. A man who truly knows himself isn't chasing a reaction. He's projecting a presence. He doesn't need her to validate his worth. He's already convinced of it. And it's that conviction, that unspoken certainty that pulls her in. Understand this. When you text her, you are not starting a conversation. You are transferring a state, your current emotional state, your inner image, your level of clarity. It's all wrapped up in that one little message. So if you're feeling unsure, anxious, or needy, stop. Don't text from that place. Ground yourself. Return to the image of the man you are becoming. Ask yourself, would the highest version of me send this? Would he rush to get a response? Would he panic if she didn't reply? Of course not, because he's not operating from fear. He's operating from abundance. He's not trying to earn her attention. He commands it through his stillness. Women are intuitive. She might not be able to put it into words, but she knows when a man is aligned with himself. She knows when a man doesn't need her to feel whole, and that knowing is magnetic. That's what makes her lean in. That's what makes her double. Read your message. Pause before she replies, and think about you before she falls asleep. It's not the text. It's the essence of the man behind the text. So now the question becomes, how do you become that man? You don't fake it. You build it. You work on the inner game long before you send the outer message. You develop discipline. You live with purpose. You know what you stand for. You raise your standards. You feed your mind with powerful ideas. You take care of your body. You don't text her because you're bored. You text her because your life's full and you're inviting her into something bigger. You're not asking her to complete you. You're offering her a chance to join you. This is why so many men get confused. They send long texts trying to explain themselves, justify their worth, prove that they're different. But when you're truly different, you don't need to say it. She'll feel it. She'll sense the inner stillness, the calm confidence, the relaxed certainty. And the man who texts from that place doesn't worry about what she'll think. He doesn't fear rejection because he knows rejection doesn't touch his value. He's too busy being the kind of man who naturally attracts the kind of woman he desires. This is the game most men never play. They're stuck on strategies when they should be focused on state. They want tactics when they should be developing truth. Every word you send reflects what you believe about yourself. That's why you have to start by becoming the man she's already waiting for. The man she dreams about isn't perfect. He's aligned. He doesn't text from emptiness. He texts from overflow. He's not looking for love to save him. He's bringing love because he's already full. And when you become that man, when you truly embody that level of presence, you don't need to wonder what to say. The words flow naturally. The tone is grounded. The timing is effortless. And even if she doesn't reply right away, you're not shaken because you're not here to impress her. You're here to express the man you've become. And that is irresistible. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. That's how you shift the dynamic without forcing it. You stop trying to make her choose you and you become the man who's already chosen himself. Most men fall into the same trap when it comes to texting a woman they're interested in. They try too hard to impress. They think if they can be witty enough, clever enough, or charming enough through text, she'll feel something magical and suddenly want to be theirs. But here's the truth that flips the entire game on its head. The man who is truly powerful in her eyes doesn't text to impress her. He texts to express his certainty. He's not performing. He's not strategizing. He's not adjusting his personality like a chameleon just to get her attention. He's simply rooted in who he is. And that level of certainty is more attractive than any perfect sentence you could ever send. Certainty is rare. Most Most people are looking for validation. Most people are hoping someone else will reflect back to them what they're afraid to believe about themselves. But a man who's done the inner work, a man who knows his value, doesn't need his message to win her approval. He's already approved of himself. That's what creates the subtle difference between a needy, hey, I was thinking about you, and a confident, you crossed my mind today. The words might look similar, but the energy behind them is completely different. One comes from hope. The other comes from ownership. One is fishing for response. The other is simply sharing a reality. When a man texts from inner certainty, he's not waiting for her reply with anxiety. He's not refreshing the screen when she's read it. He's not replaying the conversation in his head wondering what he should have said differently. His world isn't shaken by silence because his world wasn't built on her response in the first place. His message isn't a test. It's a reflection. It reflects where he is mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It reflects that he's not trying to be anything more than who he already is. And that is rare. That is what makes a woman stop and think. That is what makes her feel safe and drawn in, not just because of what he says, but because of what she feels when he says it. Impressing someone puts the power in their hands. Expressing from certainty keeps the power within you. Most men hand their power away the moment they pick up the phone. They try to say what they think she wants to hear. They edit themselves. They hesitate. They overthink. And the moment you overthink, you overcompensate. You start bending your tone, tweaking your personality, adjusting your words. You become more concerned with managing perception than maintaining authenticity. But what you don't realize is that the second you chase approval, you break the attraction. Because attraction is born from polarity, and polarity dies in the absence of confidence. Certainty doesn't mean arrogance. It doesn't mean texting with an inflated ego or acting like you don't care. True certainty is grounded. It's calm, it's steady. It's the knowing that you have value whether she sees it or not. It's the understanding that your life is rich with or without a reply. That kind of certainty speaks louder than any long paragraph or clever punchline. It doesn't need exclamation points or pickup lines. It just needs truth. And when your truth comes through in your communication, she feels it in her nervous system. She may not be able to explain why, but something about your energy will stand out. Something about you will feel different. Something about you will feel safe. But also exciting, you have to train yourself to stop texting for a response and start texting as an extension of your already solid self. If you're trying to win her over with every message, then every message is rooted in insecurity. But if your messages are coming from a place of wholeness, then she's not receiving a cry for validation. She's receiving the presence of a man who knows what he's about. And that's rare. That's what she's looking for, whether she admits it or not. She wants a man who doesn't flinch, a man who's not seeking her to complete his story, but inviting her to be a part of a story that's already in motion. You can tell a lot about a man by how he texts, not by the grammar or the spelling, but by the intention behind it. When you communicate from need, it shows. When you communicate from strength, it radiates, and she will feel the difference. That's why inner work is the foundation of every outer result. If you want better outcomes in your love life, don't start with the text. Start with the source. Start with your self-image. Start with your beliefs. Start with your certainty. Because once you're certain about who you are, you won't need to second guess what you say. You won't need to overanalyze or rewind or stress. You'll send the message and you'll release it. You'll speak from center, and that frequency cuts through noise. That vibration doesn't get left on read because it doesn't just enter her inbox. It enters her awareness. It lingers. It resonates, not because of what you said, but because of the power that was present in every word you chose. Most men text like they're writing a report. Short, logical, dry. They focus on what makes sense. They send updates. They explain, they inform. But attraction doesn't grow in logic. Connection doesn't ignite through facts. Love doesn't blossom because everything makes sense. People, especially women, fall for how you make them feel, not what you explain. The real game of texting isn't about structure or rules. It's about emotion. If you want her to remember you, crave your presence, smile when she reads your words, then you need to bypass her thinking mind and speak directly to her emotional world. That's how you create impact. That's how you become unforgettable. Words are the vehicle, but feeling is the fuel. You can send 10 logical, well-written messages and still be forgotten. Or you can send one line that awakens a feeling inside her that no one else has stirred. And that one message will live in her heart for days. Why? Because emotion creates memory. Emotion creates meaning. Emotion creates desire. And every time you text her, you're either triggering a sensation that pulls her closer or leaving her emotionally neutral, which means you disappear from her awareness the moment she locks her phone. Most men don't even realize how numb their communication is. They're too focused on being cool or nonchalant. They think if they just act indifferent, she'll chase. But indifference doesn't create chemistry. It creates confusion. Women want to feel. They want to be moved, not manipulated, not overwhelmed, but moved, emotionally stirred. So when you text her, the goal isn't to impress or to prove you're smart or stable. The goal is to trigger a vibration. You do that by painting pictures, by planting emotional seeds, by asking questions that make her reflect, laugh, imagine, and feel alive. For example, instead of saying, "How was your day?" which is logical, dry, and a dime a dozen, you say, "I bet you were making people laugh today the way you do without even trying." One is a question that requires a basic answer. The other is a statement that reflects how you see her and makes her feel seen. Or instead of saying, "We should hang out sometime," you say, "There's this little cafe I found that I'm convinced was made for conversations that go deep without trying." You love it. You've now activated her imagination, her curiosity, her senses. You've just made a simple idea feel like a movie scene. That's what emotional texting looks like. That's the difference between being a guy in her inbox and a man in her mind. You want to start using more emotional cues in your text. Words like feel, imagine, wonder, remember, love, crave, miss, warm, deep, rare, vibe. These words activate her emotional circuits. They bypass the rational gatekeepers and go straight to her subconscious. Because again, she's not evaluating you with a checklist. She's feeling you with her body. Her decision to open up to you, to let her guard down, to invest in the connection is emotional first, rational second. So if you're trying to win her over with how logical or low pressure you're missing the entire foundation of connection. And let's be clear, emotional texting doesn't mean love bombing. It's not about being overly dramatic or fake deep. It's about subtlety. It's about speaking in tones, not just words. It's the difference between saying, "That's interesting," and "That makes me wonder what else you see in the world that most people miss." See the shift. One is flat. The other provokes introspection. It invites her to step into a richer emotional space. That's the zone where attraction lies. That's the zone where bonds begin to form. That's the zone where she doesn't just text back, she invests back. A woman's heart opens when she feels safe, seen, and stimulated emotionally. Your words can be the key that unlocks that door, but only if they carry emotional weight. And that requires you to be connected to your own emotions. You can't inspire feeling if you're numb inside. So don't just look for what to say. Tune in to how you feel. Speak from real curiosity. Speak from wonder. Speak from confidence in your ability to connect. Because when your words come from an authentic emotional place, they land with power. They stick. They echo. Your job is not to impress her with how composed and strategic you can be. Your job is to stir something inside her she hasn't felt in a while. Something real. Something textured. Something human. You do that not by scripting every word, but by aligning your intention with emotional honesty. Start replacing stereo text with messages that breathe. Messages that drip with awareness, presence, and depth. When you do this, you separate yourself from 99% of the men out there. You stop being background noise and start becoming the one she pays attention to, thinks about at random times, and misses when you're silent. Not because you said the right thing, but because you felt right. Because you spoke to her heart, not just her head. Because you didn't just text to talk, you texted to touch. Most men destroy the spark before it even has a chance to grow because they're too focused on chasing, too eager to get attention, too quick to reply. Too desperate to be validated, they don't realize that attraction is not something you force. It's something you allow. And the most powerful way to allow it is through building tension. Not pressure, not manipulation, but natural, emotional, psychological tension. That means you must understand this basic law of connection. When you constantly chase, you leave no room for mystery. And without mystery, desire dies. What makes a woman think about you is not just how much you're texting her. It's how you make her feel in the silence. It's how you linger in her mind when you're not blowing up her phone. Most men are terrified of space. They fear silence. They believe if they're not constantly engaging, she'll lose interest. But that's not how desire works. Desire needs distance. Desire needs air. Desire grows in the space between messages, in the moments where she wonders what you're thinking, what you're doing, why you're not rushing back. That curiosity is where tension lives, and tension is the fuel of attraction. You have to learn the art of restraint, the art of holding your ground without retreating. It doesn't mean ignoring her. It doesn't mean playing games. It means you stop texting like yourself. Worth depends on a response. When you give space, you create polarity. You allow her to feel the contrast between your presence and your absence. That contrast is what makes your presence valuable. But when you're always there, always reacting, always chasing, you become predictable. Predictability kills romance. Predictability is comfort. But attraction isn't born in comfort. It's born in the unknown. Now, when you create this healthy, you're not doing it out of fear or manipulation. You're doing it because you understand your worth. You're doing it because you have a life, a mission, a routine, a focus. You're not waiting by the phone. You're not rearranging your schedule for a girl you barely know. You're living from center, and your communication reflects that. When you wait to reply, it's not out of insecurity. It's because you're genuinely occupied with your own growth. When you're not available 20/47, it's because your life already has structure and purpose. This is what most men fail to grasp. They think being constantly available makes them more attractive. But in reality, it makes them easier to forget. Think about it. What's more exciting? Someone who's always there on demand, or someone whose presence feels intentional and rare. Rarity creates value. Scarcity creates curiosity. And when a woman starts to wonder what's going on with you, she starts to invest. Not because you asked her to, not because you begged for attention, but because you created the conditions where she wanted to lean in. You must also understand that attraction is deeply tied to emotional pacing. If you reveal everything too soon, if you pour out your feelings and attention without allowing things to breathe, you smother the connection. Real intimacy takes time. Real connection builds in layers. You're not trying to win her over in one day. You're not trying to force closeness. You're allowing it to unfold. And that unfolding happens when both people are emotionally engaged, not when one person is doing all the work. That's why it's crucial not to over-text. Don't be the guy who sends 3 messages back to back because she didn't reply fast enough. Don't be the guy who over-explains, who double-texts, who floods her phone with energy she hasn't earned yet. When you chase, you flip the polarity. You become the pursuer. You carry all the tension. She holds the power. But when you relax, when you stay grounded, when you wait and allow her to miss you, you reverse that dynamic. She starts to feel the pull. She starts to question, to wonder, to desire. And that is where the real magic begins. Let your messages create movement, not pressure. In the conversation first. Leave her wanting more. Plan ideas, not conclusions. Text in a way that makes her think about you even after the chat ends. Don't rush to fill every gap. Let her sit in the silence and feel the absence of your presence. That's not distance. That's depth. You're not pushing her away. You're allowing space for desire to grow. Most importantly, never seek validation through texting. If you're using her replies to feel good about yourself, you've already lost the frame. You're not here to chase approval. You're here to own your value. And your value doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't panic. It whispers with confidence. It stays still. It holds frame because it knows that what's meant for you will feel the pull. It knows that you don't have to chase a queen when you're already a king. You simply lead, and leadership in texting is about guiding the tone, setting the pace, and letting the dance of energy unfold without forcing it. The biggest mistake men make in texting is trying to win a woman over by lowering themselves to her level of energy, thinking it will build rapport or connection. But real attraction isn't about mirroring passivity or playing it safe. It's about elevating the entire dynamic. You don't just match her vibe. You raise the standard. You guide the interaction towards something higher. You pull her out of the noise and into your frequency. That's how she knows she's not just dealing with another man. She's dealing with someone who sets the tone, not someone who reacts to it. You're not adapting to her energy. You're leading her with yours. You have to stop trying to be liked. Liking is neutral. Liking is safe. Liking doesn't change lives. Women are not moved by average. They are not captivated by convenience. They are pulled in by presence, certainty, and vision. And if all you do is match her pace, copy her texting style, wait for her to initiate, or tiptoe around saying something bold, you will disappear into the crowd of men who are playing small. Because while you're being careful, someone else is being intentional. While you're being agreeable, someone else is being magnetic. When you raise the standard, you don't just change how you show up. You change how she experiences you. You're no longer texting just a pastime. You're creating a space that she feels challenged and elevated in. You're not asking surface level questions. You're going deeper. You're not afraid to flirt with purpose, to direct the conversation toward clarity, to call out her energy when it feels guarded, or to playfully challenge her beliefs. That's leadership. And leadership, even in texting, is what separates the man who holds her interest from the one who gets ghosted. This doesn't mean you dominate the conversation. It means you direct it. You're the one who knows where it's going. You're the one who's leading it toward connection, depth, laughter, truth, not just small talk and dead-end banter. And that starts with the way you carry yourself. If your energy is low, your text will feel flat. If you're insecure, your text will feel hesitant. But if you're grounded in who you are, your messages won't just be words, they'll be extensions of your standard. She'll feel that. without you having to explain it. You want her to feel elevated after talking to you. You want her to feel like she just interacted with a man who is so clear in who he is that it naturally pulls her higher. That doesn't come from trying to impress. It comes from holding the frame. It comes from knowing what kind of energy you will and won't accept. You don't tolerate lazy conversations. You don't indulge in dry responses. You don't chase a vibe that's not matching yours. You don't wait for her to set the tone. You set it. That means that she gives low effort. You don't punish her, but you also don't reward it. You scale back. You protect your energy. You move in alignment with your own value. That contrast is what often wakes her up. It tells her, this man isn't like the others. He doesn't need me to respond to feel good about himself. He doesn't tolerate mediocrity. He raises the temperature or he walks away. That's when she starts adjusting to your level. That's when she begins to realize you're not just here to match her. You're here to lead her into something better. You can also raise the standard by introducing better conversations. Instead of texting with, you ask her something like, what's something you've been wanting to do but keep putting off? Or what do people misunderstand about you the most? These questions aren't random. They're gateways to depth. They communicate that you're not just another guy looking for entertainment. You're a man who craves substance, a man who values inner clarity. And if she's aligned, she'll feel pulled into that frequency. And if she's not, she'll fall off. And that's exactly what you want. Because raising the standard isn't about keeping everyone. It's about attracting only what's aligned. You also raise the standard with your timing and pacing. You don't respond instantly every time unless it aligns with your flow. You're not waiting with your phone in hand. You have a schedule. You have goals. You have purpose. When you text, you do it with intention. You don't flood her inbox. You leave space. You allow desire to breathe. You maintain the rhythm of a man whose life is already full. And that fullness is what she feels in every message. It's what tells her you're not trying to escape your own world by entering hers. You're inviting her into something solid, something stable, something rare. Raising the standard also means expecting authenticity. You're not here for games, mixed signals, or emotional laziness. If she's interested, great. If she's not, you don't force it. You let it go with grace because you're not operating from scarcity. You know, your energy is expensive. Your time is valuable and your presence is a gift. So when you text her, it's not a plea for connection. It's a statement of direction. And that direction is always upward, toward truth, toward fire, toward depth, toward something worth remembering. When most people think of texting, they think of it as casual, meaningless, surface level communication. But the truth is, every word you send is a small opportunity to influence someone's emotional world, consciously or subconsciously. You're not just sending words, you're planting ideas. You're leaving imprints. You're shaping perception. And the most powerful men know how to use simple, subtle language to speak directly to the subconscious mind of the woman they're texting. This isn't manipulation. It's precision. It's emotional intelligence. It's understanding that beneath every interaction, there's a blueprint being written. And when you learn how to write into that blueprint, you stop chasing attention and start becoming unforgettable. The subconscious doesn't respond to logic. It responds to identity, emotion, pattern, repetition. So when you text her, it's not about sounding smart or clever. It's about embedding certain ideas into how she sees you and how she sees herself when she's around you. Most guys text with the goal of being liked, but the few who stand out are the ones who shift how a woman sees herself through the lens of their presence. They make her feel valued, seen, understood. Not by flooding her with compliments, but by anchoring powerful identity cues in the conversation, trigger an emotional response. Words like, you're the kind of woman who, followed by something rare and elevated. You've got this calm energy that most people just don't have. I notice how thoughtful you are. It's like you actually listen to life, not just people. These aren't pickup lines. These are subconscious mirrors. They reflect back the best version of her, one that she wants to be. And because you're the one reflecting it, she associates that version of herself with you. That's how emotional bonding works. That's how deep attraction starts to form. Not through over-the-top flattery, but through language that resonates with who she wants to be. People don't attach to what's logical. They attach to what makes them feel more them. If your presence amplifies her identity in a meaningful way, she will naturally seek you out without fully knowing why. It's about subtle repetition. You reinforce the identity you want her to connect to. You say things that echo that narrative. You point out the uniqueness of her thoughts, her energy, her presence. Not in a thirsty way, not in a forced way, but in a way that tells her, I see you deeper than most. And when she feels that depth, She starts to open. She lowers her guard because now she's not just texting a guy. She's connecting with someone who reflects her deeper self. This also means being mindful of what kind of emotional experiences you're triggering when you text. If all your messages are neutral, she will forget them. If your tone is always predictable, she will lose interest. You have to learn how to balance playfulness with depth, curiosity with clarity, softness with edge. One moment you're making her laugh with a clever twist. The next, you're challenging her perspective with a simple question that no one's ever asked her. You don't have to be intense all the time, but you do have to be intentional because her subconscious is always asking, what do I feel when I talk to this man? If the answer is the same as everyone else, you become replaceable. If the answer is something different, something deeper, something I can't quite explain, you become the exception. And don't underestimate the power of emotional anchoring. If she tells you something vulnerable, reflect it back in a way that elevates her, not pities her. If she opens up about a dream or passion, tie it back to her identity. That makes so much sense. Someone like you wouldn't be okay settling for anything less than purpose. These kinds of phrases go straight past the surface and land deep. They create emotional anchors that link you to her highest self-image. That's the kind of bond that doesn't fade. The same principle applies when you create shared narratives. Talk about the future in a way that subconsciously includes her. Not forcefully, not we should date in a direct way, but with playful imagination. You'd probably be the one convincing me to take random road trips every weekend. If we ever ended up in a bookstore together, you'd disappear in the poetry section. These aren't promises, they're possibilities. They create mental imagery. They subtly suggest a connection that feels easy, organic, and emotionally rich. And whether she replies with laughter or curiosity, her subconscious mind is already considering the scenario. You're not just a guy texting for fun. You are a storyteller, a guide, a mirror. And every message you send is a tool. You can reinforce shallow energy, or you can build emotional depth. You can be another forgettable name in her inbox. Or you can be the one who made her feel more herself than she's felt in a long time. That's the difference between sending messages that entertain and sending messages that influence. Between being liked and being remembered. Between texting and transforming. Because when you understand how the subconscious mind works, you don't just text her. You leave a part of your energy inside her memory. You're not reacting. You're rewriting her emotional blueprint of what connection feels like.